Hey, friends. Welcome to the new podcast, which is yet to be named. I'm your host, Eric. Thank you so much for joining me today. Well, you might be asking yourself, why why are you creating a new podcast? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm creating a new podcast because I really wanted to talk about my battle with my weight. As you'll come to know throughout this podcast, I've battled my weight nearly my entire life. And as you can see from my current stature, I haven't won that battle yet. I'm still on the journey. But I've learned a lot along the way. I feel like there's been a lot of lessons, a lot of hard lessons. This has not been an easy battle, but it's a battle of a lifetime. And the reason why I wanted to start the podcast was I know that there are others out there that are struggling with the same thing. And if I can find, or if I can give hope to just one person, that maybe you're struggling in similar ways and you just need that little bit of inspiration, that little bit of hope, that little bit of help just to push you on your way, well, then I hope that this podcast does that for you. What I want to do throughout this podcast, we'll see how it evolves, but I want to talk a little bit about, we'll talk a lot about my weight and my struggles that I've had with that. I want to talk a little bit about food addiction. That's always a challenging topic to talk about, but I think it's a necessary one. We'll talk about some topics like vulnerability, shame. We're going to talk a lot about fitness and other topics too, some like creating good habits and things like that. But today, what I want to do for this particular episode, I want to do three things. My former CEO, Doug Kaufman, used to say, always give them three because three is a great number. So this one's for you, Doug. In this episode, what we're going to do, I want to share with you a quote that has been super encouraging for me and really kind of the driver of me actually even doing this podcast. Then I want to give you a brief overview of my health journey. What's going on? How did I get to where I'm at today? What are some of those struggles? And then third, I want to give you an idea of some upcoming episodes. What are things that we're going to talk about? But first, a word from our sponsors. Just kidding. There are no sponsors. So let's start out with the quote. Brene Brown, one of my favorite all-time authors. I'm a big fanboy. If I ever got to meet her, I would probably pass out. Her books, if you haven't read her books, I absolutely encourage you to do so. They have absolutely changed my life. Daring Greatly was the first one I read, and man, was it life-changing. But Brene Brown said one time, she said, if courage is a value of yours, you have no choice but to show up and be seen. Let me say that again. If courage is a value of yours, you have no choice but to show up and be seen. Whew, friends, that quote is challenging, motivating, inspiring, a little bit scary. She's got a workshop or an exercise that she does, I think it's in the book Braving the Wilderness, where she has you go through and rank or really identify your two core values that really kind of drive everything. Everything flows out of these two things. And for me, when I went through that exercise, courage and connection were the two main values that I came up with. Everything flows out of courage and connection. And so I've been thinking about doing something like this for a long time. I've thought about maybe writing a book, but I couldn't figure out how to tell the story. And so over the new year, I was thinking about ways to be creative and said, well, what if I did a podcast and just started talking about my journey? I'm still on it. I haven't won this battle. And I thought maybe this might be encouraging, maybe a different angle, because a lot of times you see people, well, I've already lost 250 pounds. Here's how I did it. Well, I'm in the battle. I still have 150 pounds or so or more to lose. I weighed in this morning at 365. Like I'm still a big guy. I'm down from the biggest I've ever been, which we'll get to, but I want to share. I thought, as Brene Brown said, if courage is a value of yours, show up and be seen. You have no choice but to show up and be seen. So this is me. This is me showing up and being seen. And the reason why I think this takes courage is because some of the things I want to talk about, it's going to require vulnerability, a lot of vulnerability. And to be honest, that's a little bit scary. But like I said, if this can help just one person, if one person can find some hope and some motivation and inspiration just to put one foot in front of the next and just keep fighting that battle, then the scariness of the vulnerability is absolutely worth it. So that was the inspirational quote. That's what got me started in this. This is why I'm doing it. If courage is a value, you have no choice but to show up and be seen. So here I am, folks. I'm being seen. So that takes us to our next part. Part 2. Our topic 2. This is an overview of my health journey. Wow, where do we start on this one? Well, the beginning is probably a good place to start. No, we're not going to go back to birth. We won't go back that far. I think I was a big baby, but not unreasonably big. Although my mom might say otherwise, but we'll save that for another time. As a young kid, I wasn't really overweight until after about the age of 10. There are some life changes, which we'll get into later, that definitely drove some weight gain. When I was in elementary school and middle school, nicknames were prevalent. Butterball, I was often called, or Chunk. Not very endearing. I was definitely aware that I was a bigger kid, but I was always pretty active. Thankfully, I think my parents gave me a really good athletic gene, and I played a lot of sports. Never some formally, but I played basketball all the time, volleyball, baseball. I really enjoyed sports. So up and through high school, I was still a bigger kid. Probably entering college, I was probably around 200, 220. But I was in shape. I was actually in fairly decent shape, though I was heavy. But once college stopped, or I graduated college, I didn't stop college. I actually graduated. I have a degree in psychology, which is going to come up a little bit later. But after college, I endured a breakup, which was life-changing. Or, man, that sounds dramatic. It was very hard. I definitely went into a depressed state. I actually gained about 60 pounds in 4 months, probably over 60 pounds. And that was the first time in my life I would hit the 300-pound mark. So graduating college, it was way back around 01, 02. I would yo-yo with my weight up and down for a while. I'd lose some, gain some, lose some, gain some. And then 2006 happened. In 2006, I had a group of friends, a group of guy friends that were just super close, super tight-knit group of guys that all ended up moving independently of one another to different areas. And man, I don't do well with loneliness. I don't do well with being alone. And again, another depressive state. And this time, I ballooned to up over 350 pounds. So you could see the trajectory was going up and up and up. And for the next 6 years or so, I would do the whole yo-yo thing again. I'd lose some, gain some, lose some, gain some. But I was still active. I was still an active guy. I played volleyball. I played ultimate frisbee. For a big guy, I was surprisingly active, or surprisingly athletic. I remember playing volleyball, diving around the court, and guys thinking, man, there's no way that you should be moving around at that size like that. I would dive on the court. It was a blast. I do that now, I'm probably going to break some bones. But I also played racquetball. I remember beating one of my roommates who was super good, super athletic, and he's like, there's no way that you could be that athletic. So I share that not as a boast, but just I was a big guy, but I was athletic, and I was able to get around. So it wasn't top of mind. Well, it was top of mind, but it wasn't like I wasn't living my life. But during that period, by 2012, I finally broached the 400 mark. And that's where I said, okay, this has got to change. I can't continue to do this. Turn the page. Yes, I have notes. So in 2012, I hit 408. I still remember getting on the scale to this day. 408 pounds. I couldn't believe it. I'd only seen them on television. It's like, what? How did this happen? Like, I'm moving around. I'm not stagnant. But man, friends started remarking, close friends, good friends started challenging me, like, Eric, you've got to make a change, man. This isn't healthy. You've got to make a change. And so, for some reason, I was able to convince myself, you know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go look for a camp, like a Biggest Loser. I actually had a lot of friends tell me, hey, why don't you try out for the Biggest Loser? That could be great. And I thought about it, and I filled out applications a couple times and chickened out. Just couldn't bring myself to do it. But I did find this thing, what I lovingly call Fat Camp. It's actually more of a behavioral health camp, but I lovingly, endearingly call it a Fat Camp. So in 2012, I think it was 2013, I enrolled in Fat Camp. And at that point, my world was absolutely turned upside down. As I mentioned, this was actually more of a behavioral health camp. And as I was filling out the application, I had to interview with one of the therapists on site. And by the end of that interview, I had been diagnosed with a binge eating disorder. Yeah, that silence, that's what was going on in the noggin. What? What do you mean I have a binge eating disorder? That's not possible. I was a psych major. There's no such thing as a binge eating disorder. There's bulimia, there's anorexia. Well, I'm not anorexic. I eat way too much to be anorexic. I'm not bulimic. I don't purge. I don't throw up. I don't take laxatives. Like, how is this possible? How do I have an eating disorder? Well, little did I know that bulimic actually had been split out into bulimic purging and bulimic non-purging, which eventually got changed in the DSM to binge eating. Oh. Oh. Well, that was a sobering reality. I have a binge eating disorder. That's not supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be the strong one. I'm supposed to be the leader. I'm supposed to take care of other people. How what? It took me almost a week to submit the paperwork to my work to get my leave so I could go to this camp, because it was that jarring. But as I read more about it, and I've got my notes over here to read to you guys. Binge eating disorder, characterized by the following: frequent episodes of eating large quantities of food in short periods of time. Folks, I could down a large pizza with the best of them. Joey Chestnut, look out, buddy. I could, well, I don't know if I could have beat you, but I could have held my own. A feeling out of control over eating behavior. Yes, there was definitely a lack of control. We'll get into some of the challenges that I had of some of the eating behaviors. Feeling ashamed or disgusted by behavior. I think I was too numb to feel ashamed or disgusted, to be honest with you. We'll get into that as we talk about Fat Camp. And there's also several behavior indicators of binge eating, including eating when not hungry. Yes, definitely have done that. And eating in secret. And I remember as I was wrestling with this, I was living with a couple roommates at the time, and I remember multiple times where I would eat shortly after we had already eaten and hope they wouldn't come down or hope they wouldn't come home so I could warm up my food and then take it up to my room so I could eat it without them knowing. So yeah, it was a sobering reality. But Fat Camp was absolutely amazing. It was actually a program called Fit RX out in Brentwood, Tennessee. I was there for 28 days, and it was an amazing program. Oh my goodness. We'll talk more about the program, but we did a lot of working out. We did group therapy. We did individual therapy. We learned about how to read labels on food at the grocery store. We went to restaurants and learned how to eat or order healthy. We went over to a chef's house and we learned how to cook. It was an amazing 28 days. And during that time, I actually lost 32 pounds. It was amazing. I felt amazing. And that following 6 months, I took that momentum and ran with it, and I lost almost 100 pounds by, I think it was by March or April. I was down by, I came back in October. By March, I'd lost almost 100 pounds. Amazing. Like, this was life changing. I was almost out of the 300s. And then it all went away. Not only did I yo yo, but I crashed, and I crashed hard. Not only did I gain all of the 100 pounds back over the next few months, I gained that and more. I, at my heaviest, was probably around 450 pounds. I don't know for sure because every time I stepped on the scale said, "Get the hell off me!" So it's possible I was even heavier than 450. Eric, what happened? Why? Why? How did you gain all that weight back? What, I thought fat camp was life changing. Well, it was. It was life changing. It was amazing. But what I learned quickly, well, maybe not quick enough, was that I hadn't dealt with the trauma that I needed to deal with. You see, when I was 10, I told you there was a life-changing event. When I was 10, my little brother passed away suddenly. He was 5 years old. He had cerebral palsy, and one night he had a grand mal seizure, and he died 3 days later. And obviously, life was changed forever. Life was changed for my family forever. There's hardly a day that goes by that I don't think about him. And while I was at fat camp, we started getting into that trauma. We started talking about it. And for the first time in a long time, I was actually able to cry. I didn't cry very often. But through the therapy, things started getting unlocked. But what I didn't realize was there was still a lot more work to do. And so after that 6 months, I got into another state where I felt utterly alone, and that's where I started gaining all the weight back. And it didn't happen quick. Well, it happened quickly. So yeah. So by 2014, I was back up to around 450, and like I said at the beginning of this episode, this morning I weighed in at 365. Actually, I think I weighed in at 368. It's amazing how your body fluctuates day to day. That's a whole other situation. Water weight is a crazy thing. But it's been a fight of a lifetime. And I want to talk to you more about it. I want to tell you about the ups and the downs. I want to tell you about how I've struggled very, very slowly. This has been 10 years. I've gone from 450 down to 365. And I still, like I said, I still have a long ways to go. 365 is not a healthy weight for me. I'm only 5'7". I'm not a tall guy. I'm a short guy carrying a lot of weight. And boy, do my knees feel it. Whoo, boy, do they feel it. So, the good news is I'm on a great trajectory. I've been able to create healthy habits. I've been working out every day. Nearly every day, not every day, nearly every day for the last 6 months. I've gotten to a point where my eating, I'm no longer binge eating, and my eating is no longer disordered. It's much more disciplined. But it's not been perfect. It's not been easy. It's been a slow process. But I'm in the fight. I'm fighting the good fight. It's a fight of a lifetime. I'm fighting like hell. And I'm winning. Now I'm winning more than I was losing, but there was times where I was losing more than I was winning. But if there's one thing that I've always clung to is there's a saying, I did not create this, but there's a saying I saw somewhere once. You may see me struggle, but you'll never see me quit. I don't quit. You'll see me struggle, but you'll never see me quit. So I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the ups and the downs. I want to talk about the victories. I want to talk about the struggles. I want to give you hope. I want to give you hope that, you know what? Maybe you're struggling. Maybe you're struggling just to get to your car. Maybe just to walk from your house to your car. Been there. Maybe you've canceled social events because you're ashamed at how big you are and how you look compared to other people. Been there. I skipped a good friend's wedding in November because it was an outdoor wedding. Actually, two. One in October, one in November. Because they were outdoor weddings. And I looked at the venue and I saw those rickety chairs. Those rickety white chairs that I don't know how they hold up much more than a mosquito. But they ain't going to hold my big old butt for that a period of time. And I was too ashamed to ask for accommodations. So if you've ever been there, I've been there. If you've ever, slept until you were hungry and ate until you're tired, I've been there. I'll tell you about some embarrassing moments of breaking chairs and, so many. But there's hope. And I'm here. I'm here to show you. I'm living proof that there's hope. So, upcoming episodes. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about, I want to dive more into Fat Camp. I want to tell you more about what I learned because I'm still using a lot of those things today. They are absolutely helping me in my battle. I do want to talk a little bit about mental health. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a trained therapist. But I just want to talk about what I've learned, things that have helped me. I do want to talk about shame. Shame is a powerful, powerful thing. It's not a tool. It's a thing. And I love what Brene Brown says. She says that shame can only exist in the dark. And so let's bring light to it, friends. Let's bring light to the shame. If shame can't exist in the light, let's bring our stuff into the light. There's no judgment. We're in this together. We're in this battle together. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about vulnerability. Again, I'm going to sound like a Brene Brown super fan. Vulnerability changed my life. For many, many years, 10, 15, 20 years, I believed that I couldn't show weakness. I couldn't show emotion. That I had to be strong and powerful. And that's just not true. Vulnerability, Brene says, is the key to wholehearted living. And I 100% agree. So we're going to talk about vulnerability. We're going to talk about fitness. I want to talk about, what can we do if I was so big that just walking was super painful. I look at some of these fitness things on YouTube. I can't do that. I can't do it, but I can do something. And that's the most important thing. We can do something. What is that something that you can do, that we can do together? And I want to talk about habits too. James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. It was another good one that helped change my life. I want to talk to you about one of the key habits, these small atomic habits that help me with my fitness journey. So folks, that's the episode. That's the podcast. This is what we're going to do. We're going to explore the highlights, the victories, and we're going to explore the struggles. We're going to be real. I promise to you that I will be as vulnerable as I can be, if it means that I can help you with your struggle. If I can help you take another step forward, if I can help you cling to hope, then it's worth it. And Brene said, shame can't exist in the light. Shame can't exist in the light. So, time to air the dirty laundry. But thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming along. I would love it if you hit the like and subscribe. That would be amazing. Drop me a comment. Tell me about things that you want to hear about. What are some of your struggles? What are things that you need to hear about? Along the way, I might try to interview some guests and some experts on different areas. We'll see if I can actually get some. Who knows? But yeah, until then, I encourage you, as Brene has encouraged me, show up and be seen. I promise you, you are worth it. Show up and be seen. You are valuable. You are worth it. Until next time, have a great day.